Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Joe KARP is good at this, and one thing that I'm going to ask Joe is, this whole thing about guardianship is pretty serious, and he's been writing an article about this, and I'm so glad he's doing that. So good morning, Joe.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good, Joe. Thank you very much. And it seems like I've been reading a lot about this. It's pretty serious, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's start with what is a guardianship and why do people have them? A guardianship is a court proceeding when somebody who is incapable of taking care of their own affairs needs somebody to take over for them, and there's no other legal method to accomplish it. See, certain people just think, if my husband can't handle things, I can take care of everything. Or if my wife can't handle things, I can take care of everything. And sometimes they think, well, we've done legal documents with the lawyer a long time ago, or even recently, I can take care of everything. And here's what happens. Somebody becomes unable to handle their own affairs. Now start with if there's no legal document. And then there's two standards for unable to take care of their own legal affairs. One is they really are just totally and absolutely in some sort of vegetative, catatonic, non-whatever participating state. They can't figure out anything. The other is when they appear on the surface to be okay, but we know that they're not. And if somebody can't handle their own affairs, somebody has to take over for them. And in certain instances, certain behavior is not a problem. If you and your spouse have a joint checking account, you can write checks. If you and your spouse have a joint brokerage account, you can call the broker and say, hey, sell this stock, do this. But you can't stop your spouse from doing things if they're capable and authorized to do them legally. And that's just on financial things. Then there's things that you can't do. You can't sign the deed to sell the house if your spouse is not in agreement, because unless you have a written document that gives you the authority to act, you can't just act. You can't just say, well, Debbie can't say, Joe doesn't know what's going on. I'll just sell the house. We got to move. We got to downsize. We got to this or that. And I'm just going to sign the house. When I sell the house, I'll just sign Joe because I'm Debbie, his wife. So, number one, you need certain legal documents. And let's assume I'm compliant. I'm the easy guy. I'm not the cranky guy. So then she needs at least a durable power of attorney that would authorize her to sign my name. And that's the way, and that instrument, if it's valid and if the financial institutions will honor it, give you the ability to act on somebody's behalf. And the same is with health care, pretty much. If Debbie is my health care surrogate and I'm really not with it, and we go to the doctor and the doctor says we have to do this minor surgery on Joe, or we got to do this, she's got the health care surrogate, I'm compliant, she can act. If there is no document, there's a rule that would allow her to act anyway. But suppose I'm non-compliant. And I say to the doctor, even with that document, if you touch me with that scalpel to cut off that wart, I'm going to sue you. Doctor won't touch me because I have the legal right to make all of my own decisions, even if I'm competent. And suppose, although I'm compliant in that Debbie can sign checks for me and stuff, but I open up credit card accounts. I mean, I just got a call from somebody whose father is totally incapable of handling his own affairs, lets the son handle all of the books, all of this deal with the broker. The father has given the son a power of attorney, but the father and the son closed a bunch of charge cards because the father was rampant with money. And the father saw that he couldn't use his charge card anyway, so he applied for a new one, and they gave him a $10,000 credit. And all of a sudden, the son discovered the father charged several $1,000s last month.
Oh, my God.
So until an illegal document, power of attorney doesn't make it that I can't act on my own behalf, even though Debbie has the authority to act for me. So sometimes you just have to have somebody declared incompetent so you can stop their actions on their own behalf. Sometimes you need it, certainly if there is no document, but even when there is a document, sometimes you need a declaration of incompetency because otherwise you can't stop the behavior. Same thing for health care. So that's guardian of property. For health care, if I refuse the medical treatment that is essential for me, or if I have to be institutionalized and I just refuse to go, if a court appoints a guardian, then I can go ahead and the guardian can supersede the wishes of the person who is incompetent. So that's why we have that proceeding. So somebody can act on somebody's behalf. Usually it's because there are no legal documents, but sometimes even when there are legal documents when the person is non-compliant, because when you're signing those legal documents, you're not abdicating your own rights. You're merely giving somebody else the authority to act as well. Is that pretty clear?
Yeah, it's really great because I guess the frightening part is that the court-appointed, person, the guardian, you don't know that person. I have to assume.
You can and you can't. That's the next thing. One of the things you can do in a document is designate who you want as a pre-need guardian. And you can designate somebody different for health and somebody different for property. So you can say, hey, if I ever become incompetent, this is who I'd want appointed. Now, the court is not duty-bound to follow that, but it gives the court a direction. The other thing is the court will appoint a guardian. So if there's an incompetency proceeding brought seeking a guardianship, because you need two steps to it, declare the person incompetent, and then establish that there's a guardianship, and the guardianship order will define what the guardian can do for you and can't do for you. So, for example, and I always joke about it because of the 2000 election, in guardianships in Florida, they tend to say that we're not going to take away the person's right to vote. It's pretty funny when somebody's in. So in 2000, when the ballots were all screwed up in Palm Beach County, I said it didn't matter if you were competent or incompetent. So many people voted the wrong way, the way the ballot was set up. They didn't know who they were voting for. But anyway, the court will then determine who the guardian should be. Now, there are preferences. First of all, the person you have designated as the person you want. But there also can be other things the court will factor in. If there are no documents, should it be the spouse? Is the spouse the one who's seeking it? And is the spouse competent? Should it be the adult children? But frequently, a lot of these people don't want the day-to-day responsibility, or the spouse can't handle it, or the kids are too busy, they can't get hands-on, and there's nobody around. And there are people who are called professional guardians who can be appointed. By the way, when you appoint somebody, when somebody's appointed, even if it's the kids or the second wife or husband or a dear friend that they've suggested, some of these people still do the wrong thing. some of these people act inappropriately, and by the time the court acts or finds out, it's too late. Mickey Rooney was victimized by that himself, where people he wanted got appointed, and they ripped them off. Now, the court annually reviews all the finances and makes you do a report with regard to the health, but sometimes it's too late, and sometimes people lie on these forms. The other thing the court does is appoint professional guardians. Now, most professional guardians are very good, caring, and kind people. They really have done this because they want to help others, and it usually falls as an adjunct as to what they may have done in their lifetime. Some of them are retired accountants or semi-retired nurses, social workers, and many of them or somebody like yourself, Anita. You really care about people. I know how you helped your mom and how you helped Bill and how you help take care of people and how your priorities are always those people. So there's a ton of good people who want to do that, and they get the responsibility and they're paid.
Well, okay, before you go any further, what are some of the responsibilities?
Well, it depends what the court authorizes the person to do. Frequently, it's take charge of the person's health care and where they can reside and how they can reside and handle their finances and pay their bills and whatever the court authorizes they can do without court permission they can do. So it's not uncommon, and some of the stuff we've read in the media is somebody has the person in charge, the guardian says, you know what, I can't leave Miss Jones or Mrs. Smith in this house alone. She needs to be watched over for 24/7. She doesn't have the kind of money to keep somebody there 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or it's just inappropriate. She really needs to be in a social environment as well. So I want to move her out to a nursing home or assisted living where she'll get more social interaction. I mean, we're talking about the good motives. Forget about where people think people have been misappropriated. So I'm going to move her out there, but one of the things I'm going to have to do ultimately is I got to clean out her house, and I don't physically do all of the work myself. I hire people. I'm going to sell her house so I have more money, and I'm not carrying this liability. I don't want to pay for an empty house while she's in, I've got a duty to preserve her assets to make it last the rest of her life, and I'm going to decide where she lives, who's in charge of her. I'm going to decide how her investments are done, and I'm going to manage her affairs. And so there's a ton of things that the guardian can be doing.
Does the guardian does the guardian always know the person, or they get to talk with them or be with them? Or?
Oh, yeah, they get to know the person, but the person, since they're incompetent, are not in the decision-making process. I don't want this one. I don't want that one. She's mean. I don't like her. You can't do that with the guardian because the court's already determined you're incompetent. So what you think doesn't matter.
Wow, that's really...
Think,
yeah,
but think about it. That's why you want to do things like at least create the documents, because you want to name your pre-need guardian and stuff like that, because you want somebody you know and trust, and you want somebody who has a handle on who you are, and that the person has your best interest at heart.
Let me tell everybody, so that's really important. So you have, of course, your seminars, and your seminars go through, I'm sure, things like this, at least if people ask questions. But let me remind everybody, this coming week, you can attend Joe KARP's seminar. He's back from Iceland, and he's going to be speaking on Tuesday, November the 7th, at Port St. Lucie Holiday Inn. And Wednesday...
Actually, Jenny Bernstein...
Oh, she does that one? Okay.
Yeah, I just don't do the drive
Okay,
anymore.
so let's just... But there is one up there if you'd like to go. It's November 7th from 1:30 to 4 at the Port St. Lucie Holiday Inn. And then Wednesday, November the 8th from 1:30 to 4 at the Courtyard by Marriott in Boynton Beach. And then Thursday, November 9th from 1:30 to 4, Palm Beach Gardens Marriott. No reservations are required. And information, if you do want to know more about it, you can go to their website, which is karplaw.com, KARPLAW.com. But if you want to call the office for any reason, it's 1-800-893-9911, 1-800-893-9911. And these are free senior survival workshops. And you can hear a lot of things. So you can continue. I just wanted people to know about that.
Sure, that's a good thing to do. And for people who come to the workshops, if we think we can help you, you'll be entitled to a free consultation rather than paying $400 for a consultation. So it's there for everybody. It's there for both estate planning and long-term Medicaid planning and Medicaid emergencies, how to handle them. So anyway, that and I want to couch back that most professional guardians are good folk that try to do the right thing. That doesn't mean that the right thing will comport with what you would have done had you had your marbles, had you been able to make your own decisions. They take the best shot in helping somebody they don't know, and who, when they hear things from that person has already been deemed incompetent. So if somebody says, I never want to leave my house, I want to stay here, I can afford to stay here, use all my money to take care of me here, don't put me into a nursing home or an assisted living, they say, well, the judge already said she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, so I don't have to even give any credence to her feelings because her feelings are from an incompetent person. I got to figure out what's best for her in my objective judgment. I think she's better off in an environment where there's other people who can watch her, that we don't have to rely upon one person there to take care of her. I don't have to figure out what happens if somebody doesn't show up. As a caregiver, she's protected. I'm free to not have to worry 24/7. So that person doesn't know you. So they're making their best judgments. Now, there are times that those decisions appear to be, and maybe in some cases, purely motivated by an uncaring, unsympathetic, potentially greedy, independent third person who only cares about making sure there's enough money for them to be paid. And there are two views on that, obviously, but I want to point that that's what's going on. Sometimes the decisions being made by that third person, although may seem horrific, they've got their own independent judgment they're trying to exercise for somebody who the court has deemed they're more appropriate than the kids or the nieces or whomever. And maybe those were people who didn't rise to the occasion. And once you got that guardian appointed, changing guardians or getting found competent is a major pain in the neck, and it's costly.
So are you a guardian for anybody?
No.
Can I be a guardian?
You could. First of all, I mean, I could if Debbie needed a guardianship.
No, I don't mean that. Could you be an outside guardian?
Parties, I could be one. I could take the course to become a professional guardian, and I could be one, but it's not something I want to be because frankly, I don't want to be it because I don't want to be dealing with the court system and all of that as an independent third party. Now, do I act on behalf of anyone? Yes, let me tell you. Number one of the things not covered by a guardianship, because the guardian covers the assets of the ward, okay? the assets of the person declared incompetent. What don't they cover? They don't cover any assets that are in the trust, because you have a trust. You've indicated who takes over if you are incompetent. Any of your assets that are in your trust, whether it's a bank account, a brokerage account, a house, stock in a corporation that you own, and I'm saying if you own a small business, that is a trust asset, and the court doesn't get involved in that. So I have clients who have nobody who's appropriate for them, and their assets don't lend themselves to bank trust companies. Sometimes it's because they don't like bank trust companies, and sometimes it's because there's not enough money, or sometimes it's because it's real estate and they don't want the bank's tendency is to liquidate real estate. So I do act for some people as their successor trustee, and if that person were in a guardianship, the trust assets are out of that loop. The court gets no jurisdiction over that because I've already created a document, put it in place that says who takes over when I can't.
Okay, so Joe, I'm going to stop you for a minute because I want to tell you something. I have said this to many people, and now you have just brought something up. If I didn't have BoomerTimes and all the things I do, I would probably start a company which would be a geriatric care management company, because I think that I know a lot about a lot of things and that I could really help. I am now thinking I ought to take that guardianship course, and I ought to do that. I really believe that I have enough staff now. I don't know. Something tells me that I could really be very helpful to people. What do you think?
It is, when I mentioned you as a person, although, and you've got your degree in geriatrics and things like that, but you're an ideal person because you have an entire read on the needs of the people, and you're sensitive to their needs, and they are your priority.
Yes.
There is no doubt in my mind, if you had to decide, if we do this for Mrs. Jones, she'll have a better quality of life, but she may not have enough money to pay my fees. To hell with it, I'll take care of Mrs. Jones. And that's who you are, and you're caring, and you're sensitive, etc. It's ideal. The first time I ever encountered a guardianship, the terms of it is must be almost 40 years ago.
Huh.
And I met a lawyer that I had known. Back in the old days, before professional guardians, a lot of lawyers became guardians. And I met a guy who was acting as a guardian when the system wasn't really looked at, and there weren't as many guardians and stuff like that. And he was a lawyer who had no practice to speak of, okay? So he went up and started up to the judges and said, whenever you need a guardian, put me on. Now, you put in for your fees as a guardian. You got to show what you think you're entitled to, and that was another thing in the local court cases that got some problems. The guardian paid themselves before getting permission from the court, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to go to the court and say, this is what I did, this is what I want. The court's supposed to review the bill and say, wait a minute, no. But this guy said to me, this absolutely the gospel. This guy said to me, he said, yeah, I act as a guardian. And he said, I go to this lady's house twice a week. I check on her. If she needs milk, I go out and pick up a quart of milk, and I bring it to her, make sure everything's in order so I can take care of her affairs. And he said, and I get paid for everything I do. And back then, he was probably getting paid $50 an hour. And he said, so I'll pick up a quart of milk for her, and I'll get $75 because I got to go to her apartment, see that she needs it, go to her condo, see if she needs it, go out to Publix, grab the quart of milk, bring it back. That's an hour and a half. I get $75 for a quart of milk. And I said, wow, that why is a lawyer getting the quart of milk? He said,
Right.
well, because I'm the guardian. I'm not going to have somebody else go do it. I can get paid. He said, what the hell? She'll be broke eventually anyway, so I may as well get the money.
Oh, my God.
That is a true story.
Wow.
That is an absolute gospel
Wow.
story. So what I'm saying is you want to take steps to avoid a guardianship. You want, if it's appropriate, to do now you can't put your IRA in your trust while you're alive, but you want to do a trust to protect monies from a guardianship so that you can designate who's in charge. You want to do a durable power of attorney. You want to create a health care surrogate. You want to indicate, and in my power of attorney, it's durable power of attorney for property. It says, in the event of my disability, I want this person to be appointed as guardian of my property. And in my health care surrogate, it says, in the event of my disability, I want this person to be guardian of my health, because there can be two different people wearing two different hats. And we do that, and with that, at least, you've set your ducks in a row as best as you can. You should do the other things that everybody should do beyond the legal steps to help try to make yourself not become incapacitated, including get good health, make sure that you're seeing somebody if you have some mental health issues or cognitive issues, to see if you can at least make yourself cooperative. But what do you do if your loved one says, they're taking out credit cards? I've had, in this past week, 3 different people who went crazy on Home Shopping Network on their charge cards.
Well, Joe, we're going to be running out of time, but I all my documents with you, of course, you've been my lawyer and my family's lawyer for so long, they're all okay, right? So that's what... You're
good to go.
See, that's it. Okay.
But now... So we'll just remind the listeners, we're doing the workshop this coming week.
Exactly.
You can go to KARPlaw, KARPLAW.com, and look up the stuff on the internet, or Tuesday in Port St. Lucie, November 7 at 1:30, Wednesday, November 8th at 1:30 at the Marriott, the Courtyard by Marriott in Boynton, and Thursday, November 9 at 1:30 in Palm Beach Gardens. And now you've learned more about guardianship than you ever did before.
Absolutely amazing. And I want to be able to go. I'm going to consider this, so I'll be talking with you more about that. Thank you very, very much.
You make a great professional guardian.
Yeah, I think this is something I've been looking for. Thank you very much. Bye, Joe.
Bye-bye.